Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard, you don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart, yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. It's a pleasure to welcome you back with us again. And many of you have been asking, how do I avail myself of the previous episodes? It's very simple. Go on YouTube. Click on A Time for Truth show, hit the subscribe button. We'll be more than happy to have you as one of our members. There's no fee, and you'll be availed of all the 4 years of episodes and segments. And tonight we're going to cover something crucially important for our world, because our world is suffering from disconnection, from conflict, from isolation. So much so that the American Surgeon General came out with an advisory saying how that lack of humanity, the lack of arts, the lack of communication or music was responsible for the epidemics and the unrest that we were facing. And tonight, we're very lucky to have with us someone from all the way across the globe in Nigeria who actually organizes and collaborates and brings international artists together to create concerts, not just for music and commercial needs or desires, but really for humanity. Someone who's worked for justice and freedom of expression. And Buddha, let's put him up on the screen and introduce his pictures of global music Goodwill ambassador Ayodele Ganiu, founder of Unchained Vibes Africa, producer of the Freedom Vibe concerts, there you see him, a former steering committee member of the African Cultural Policy Network. He was a previous national coordinator of the Committee for Relevant Arts Network in Nigeria. He's a talking drum artist and an arts manager and a cultural activist advocating policy reform and artistic rights of expression. Ganiu is an artistic freedom advocate and former Free Muse Program Officer for Africa, which is an international human rights organization, co-founded Intro Africa, and as director of Talking Drums, Ambassador Live Music Performance Tours, he took on the position of coordinator to develop creative industry initiatives, including the Enterprise Support Program, which resulted in the approval of the new Nigerian Copyright Bill in 2018. Ayodele holds degrees in finance from the University of Lagos. He has extended training and expertise in cultural diplomacy from the Academy of Cultural Diplomacy in Berlin. He has training in cultural leadership from Go Down Center in Nairobi, in African Art Institute's Cultural Entrepreneurship from the University of Cape Town. It was the African Arts Institute in Cape Town, and from the University of Hildesheim, where he did his Arts Rights Justice Academy program, part of the UNESCO chair at the University of Hildesheim. He was previously artistic director of Yoruba Drum Festival, a Nigerian National African Continental Coordinator for Art Watch Africa. And since 2014, he's dedicated his career to advocate against censorship, for rights reforms, defending artistic freedom, and coordinating emergency assistance for artists at risk. His many awards include the Global Young Social Entrepreneurs Award in Malaysia, the O'Brien Fellowship Award by McGill University of Canada, the Regan Fischel Fellowship Award by the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington, D.C. And Buddha, if you will, let's bring him up live and bid a warm welcome to Ayodele Ganiu to A Time for Truth show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ben. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking the time. And I want to get right to it because I know you have so much to share. So I wanted to ask you at the beginning, what were your dreams as a young man?
Thank you very much. As a young man, as far as I can remember, initially in my primary education, in my primary school, I had some crazy dreams. Nigeria was under military dictatorship. So as a child, I saw those military dictators as role models until I got to the early part of secondary education. That was around 1990 when Nelson Mandela was released from prison. And a few years before then, Professor Wole Soyinka won the Nobel Prize in Literature. So those two icons they shaped my thinking as a child. And I began to realize that these military dictators were actually dictators, not leaders to be emulated. So I started looking, seeing Wole Soyinka, Nelson Mandela as the kinds of people I wanted to be. So those were my dreams growing up as a young man.
Very nice. And that's what you want to go towards, to be striving like them. And how did you start?
Yes.
How did you start in the arts? And also at the same time, entrepreneurship almost simultaneously, it seems. How did that happen?
Yeah, I didn't start simultaneously with entrepreneurship. I inherited art, actually. My father was a music curator. He had his own band, even though he was not a singer. My mother came from a family of talking drummers. So I inherited, I was, born, I was raised in a music family. So I was really, my childhood was, music was very important in my childhood. So I grew up with music and artistic environment. So when I got to the university as an undergraduate, I was very involved in cultural activities, and I was elected the social secretary in my departmental association. So as a social secretary, I was responsible for organizing shows, parties, ceremonies, concerts, and all that. So that was how I developed my career in the arts. But entrepreneurship, I also joined an organization called Junior Chamber International. It's an international organization. It actually started here in the US. So as a global organization, it's a leadership organization. I was made the project coordinator of a campus trade fair. So that was how entrepreneurship came into me. supporting small businesses, inviting small businesses, building skills in entrepreneurship. So that was how it looked like it started simultaneously as an undergraduate at the University of Lagos.
Very interesting. And so then I can understand, because of your background and the tradition in your family, which is beautiful, because I think music gives you a really different type of upbringing. It makes you more humanitarian, more understanding. A lighter approach to life is so important. So I want to ask you, what led you to found Unchained Vibes Africa?
Thank you very much. Before I founded Unchained Vibes Africa, I had served in various capacities because of some of my experiences as an artist. Sometime in 2012, musicians led one of the most successful protests, peaceful protests in Nigeria in 2012, fuel subsidy removal protest in Lagos, where a stage was erected and people were performing. That was the first time protest could not be labeled as violent because it was just about music and it was successful, but soldiers were deployed. And I went with my band, with my talking drummers, and everybody was violently removed from the event without any. So I realized that, so these gatherings, just playing music can be very, uncomfortable for those who are intolerant. Okay, that was when I began to focus on artistic freedom, right? But for the establishment of Unchained Vibes Africa, it was 2020 when a repeat of what happened in 2024 happened. But this time around, it was young people that did it. And it was more successful. It was massive. They called it NSAS. It was a protest against police brutality in Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
And they were able to sustain that protest peacefully with music. There was a place called Lekki Tollgate. At that Lekki Tollgate, a massive stage was erected where people were performing, musicians were performing. The same thing happened. What happened in 2012 happened, but this time around, more violent and, unspeakable, because soldiers were deployed and they opened fire on unarmed, protesters where people were performing on stage. It was
unbelievable.
It was a disaster. It was a tragedy. Many people were killed, and that protest lasted for 2 weeks without violence because of the power of music, because of the performances that were attracting people, and that was what the authorities were not comfortable with, because it was gaining international media traction, local and international media traction, and they had to deploy soldiers. It was shocking that it had to be soldiers that had to be deployed. That was what informed the founding of Unchained Vibes Africa. That though our vibes, our music, our poetry, our performances, our drama, that attracted such response, violent response, are too powerful and should not be changed. That was the foundation of Unchained Vibes Africa. That it has to continue because artists actually championed that struggle.
Makes total sense. And it's a very good solution through music, through the arts. And, you're also, I know, a strong advocate to educate against illicit drugs, obviously against the violence. And I actually laud you, congratulate you that you take your music and you're fighting against drugs, you're fighting against violence. And I want to ask you, because you're the producer of Freedom Vibes, to tell us about your concert series and how you promote and defend artistic freedom.
Thank you very much. So Freedom Vibes series is a concert series. We started, in fact, the intention was to start something very small, on a very small scale, as a monthly gathering with artists showcasing their talent and addressing very important issues. But after the first edition, we realized that the scale was really, because how it was well received, it was massive. So we it evolved to a quarterly event. So we address human rights issues at Freedom Vibes series, and that's why we curate artists, musicians, performers, poets, spoken word poets especially, who are socially conscious, who are socially engaged, who address very important, but not just the issues. They must also have the talent, because the two have to align. At the end of the day, because the power of music and art is it connects, it moves people emotionally. It has to appeal to people emotionally to be able to act. So when you're addressing an important issue or very serious issues, sometimes when people are overwhelmed with too many problems, they just want to enjoy themselves. But when you have that music that touches the soul, that touches people's heart, that appeals to emotion, then you can make that action happen. You can make that change happen. You can move them. Music is spiritual as well.
Absolutely.
So
You
that's
know,
how we use Freedom Vibes to
do that.
do that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, you know what? It makes so much sense. And it's amazing how you've been doing over 16 years now. How you've been taking music, applying it like a solution, like an antibiotic for the problem.
Yes.
And you're doing something natural, something that has no side effect except positive side effect. And it's amazing. And I can totally understand, because of the mood the music puts you in, how that it brings people to a higher level, and you know, that it brings change possible. I want to ask you something, is because you produced and you co-produced the State of Artistic Freedom Report in 2018, and also another one, Creativity Wronged, how women's rights to artistic freedom was denied. What impact were you trying to get, and did you have, by doing these two different publications?
Thank you very much. We realized that it was necessary for advocacy to have evidence-based research. Data, statistics, numbers, they count a lot when you want to address violations. Some of those examples I cited about, how soldiers were deployed and all that. If we just talk about it, the skills, if we don't have the numbers, we don't have the evidence, we don't have the statistics to, challenge and advocate for change, then nothing would happen. So that was what informed those reports. And I personally, as the program, that report was originally produced by Free News. I was the Africa Regional Program Officer. So I covered the Sub-Saharan Africa, and I used that tool as my own weapon to advocate for policy reforms from those in authorities, from religious extremists who actually violate artistic freedom. Who there are, for instance, the women, the creativity wronged, how artistic freedom of women were denied. Some cultures, some societies in Africa don't believe that women should be artists. They don't believe that women should sing in public. Those are the kinds of tools, documenting those numbers, the societies where they come from, and all those things. Those are the ways we engage those in authorities, policymakers, that these things has to change. In 2017, in Rwanda, I'm in this country next to Rwanda. Sorry. Oh my God. Oh, this country very close to Rwanda. That country actually banned drumming by women.
Unbelievable.
Drumming by women. You know, a law was enacted banning women from drumming because it's sacred. Yes, drumming across Africa is sacred, but no culture prohibits women from participating in drumming. There may be some superstitious beliefs and all that, and this is 2025. That was 2017. We are in an era where we should explore the cultural dimension of development, not reenacting archaic traditions. It's an advantage that women can drum, and we should encourage them. So all those are part of the ways we have those tools to engage those in authorities.
Ayodele, you know, what you're saying is logical. Unfortunately, in our world, there are practices that are, you know, rituals almost, and really based on past rights, not necessarily that they're based on the information or human rights. But thanks to people like you, they changed. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
How do you stay so focused? How do you keep going? Because I'm sure you must encounter tremendous number of barriers in your life, and probably have encountered. So how do you continue to focus and just go forward like you do?
Thank you very much. First of all, the passion. And you know, when you yourself, when the drive is from the within, when it is from within, I don't have to wait for anybody to motivate me. Anytime I experience setback, you know, money on several occasions has been a setback. You know, I go back to my music. There is nothing in this world that happens to you that somebody has not sung about it, that somebody has not made a song or created a song or made music about it.
Very true.
When I go back to it, for instance, when I see the wars everywhere, what is happening in Sudan, what is happening in Ukraine, in Pakistan, you know, I mean, Palestine, and Gaza, all those places. When I listen to Michael Jackson's "Heal the World," you know, it touches my heart. I get relieved. You know, sometimes when I share it, when I'm in a gathering, I'm talking, I use that song to aid my feeling, and I feel most times people feel the same way. They are touched. You know, so music is my escape whenever I experience setbacks or any barriers or challenges. I go back to my music, I reflect, it uplifts me. So I'm self-motivated. The passion is from within, and also that spirit of resilience. It's also, over the years, has been the propelling force, never to stop. And when you look at how much you have gone far with what you are pursuing, then it becomes more difficult to go back or to stop.
Very true. Very true. You know, we met in Washington, D.C. at the International Religious Freedom Summit in February. It was a beautiful event, and there was such a bonding of all these international leaders, but we all had something in common, fighting not for individuality, but for human rights across the globe, which is where I met you. And so I wanted to ask you, What goals do you want to accomplish for humanity with your music initiative and message?
Thank you very much. I want to achieve a more peaceful world. I want my music, the music I produce, the artists I work with to spread the message of love. Love is lacking around the world. With love, there won't be thought of war. There won't be thought of violence. Love is very important. Love is currently scarce around the world. There's so many terrible things. There's so much hate, polarization, even in the United States. Nationalist movements everywhere, far right political movements around the world. Divisions, all that creates tension. I want my music, I want my projects, my mobilizations, my concert series, my missions with music around the world to contribute in no small measures to dousing those tensions, spreading love, and motivating people to love each other, do the right thing, stay away from drugs, hard drugs, embrace peace, and respect cultural diversity. Those are the things I want to contribute to achieving with my music projects, with my partnerships, my collaborations. Yes, and I also want to work with you, Dr. Ben, to realize, the campaign, a global campaign against illicit drug abuse, drug misuse. Using our music, our ambassadors, we've got a number of fantastic, talented, socially engaged activists who are musicians, who are ready to support the initiatives. These are the ways I want to affect the world positively with my music projects.
Well, I think that's tremendous initiative. It's a worthwhile initiative. It's a plan that needs to go forward. It's for all of us. It's not just for some of us. It's for the world. I agree with you. I think enough young people have died from drugs. I think enough people have been killed over a piece of land or control over people, and then they in turn get killed in the future by a different faction, and then years go by and they die to a different faction. I think you're so correct. It's time to end that history of man. It's time to start a new history. They call the Renaissance when it came, and I like your idea. It's a music renaissance that brings with it all of the benefits and the positive sides of humanity. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. We're nearing the end. What statement would you like to leave our viewers before we end this program?
Thank you very much. To the viewers, thank you very much for having me on this show. My message is, please support artists who are using their talent to benefit the society. Whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's poetry, please support them, encourage them. Most times when they challenge the status quo, they are at the receiving end. They are threatened, they are censored, they are attacked. They need your help. Please support artists who are socially conscious, who are doing great work, who are creating music, who are making movies, who are doing all manners of creative endeavors that benefit the society. Most times, those in authorities or those who want to control others are not comfortable with what they produce because they see their works as too powerful to be allowed to be free. Please support them to be free. Thank you.
We'll make a better world. Thank you, Ayodele, for being there.
Thank you, viewers.
Have a very good night. We'll see you on the next episode of A Time for Truth show. Be well.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet